Hi everyone, this is Jeb here with Earth and Turf. Today we're going to unpack, and by that I mean uncrate and assemble a model 220 MS. This would be very similar, just smaller scale to the 320 MS. We're going to also assemble the loading chutes option on the top of the box, which you may have no option, you may have the light material sides option. It's all just simple nuts and bolts, but we're still going to put it together, that way you have something to work off of. The first thing you're going to want to do when you have your crate is get it into an easy workspace where you've got room to move, equipment. We're going to be using a floor jack and then some simple homeowner tools in this video just so that it's comparable to what you may be working with. If you have a forklift or an actual shop, that may be easier. First thing, once you actually get into that space, is going to be to take your knife, a pocket knife or utility knife, and actually just cut the plastic off. So we're going to jump into that, get all the junk out of the way, and then start into the wood. There are a couple of different ways that you could start taking the crate apart. One is with a hammer and pry bar, literally prying the nails out one at a time, or with the whole board. Or you can take a Sawzall in and actually cut the nails from underneath. Obviously it's up to you. Please be safe with the nails, with the tools that you're working with. And then of course, after you're done with it, all the wood is just scrap, which you can either throw in the trash, burn, or get rid of, whatever way is safe for you. So we're gonna go in, we're gonna do a little bit of both here, just depending on which angles we're going. Crate out of the way, just make sure that you're careful of all the nails that are sticking out. The ones that were cut came nice and flush, therefore no sharp edges, but the ones that we ripped out by hand, just be cautious of those. Nails that are left in the crate, I'm just going to tap in, that way we don't hook our boots and our pants on them. Like so. You can go around and just make sure there are no sharp edges before you get to work. Before we dive into the actual assembly of the machine, I'm going to loosen this front bolt right here. There's a nut on the other side, and I'm just going to loosen it a little bit, not to disassemble it, even though we will have to do that at some point. What I'm trying to do here is just make sure it can pivot, and I'm going to lift from the back end. So loosen that, and then we're going to go around to the sides, and we're actually going to take apart the bolts that are holding the hubs, and then we'll lift it up and put the wheels on. I'm going to come in here to the hub of the spreader. This is the left side that we're looking at. Spreader's pointed that way. These are 3/4 inch lug nuts that you can back out with a 3/4 inch socket, and then down here you have two specific screws that are holding the plate to the crate. What that does is make sure that you can't move it side to side, so we're going to leave those in place just so that the hubs can't move out of position while you're working around the machine. But I am going to take these lug nuts out a while, or excuse me, lug bolts out a while, that way we can get everything lined up, and then we're going to lift it, take these out, and put the wheels on. So first things first, back these off. Again, 3/4 inch head. They're about 1.5 inches long and a 1/2 inch thick. As far as the bolt goes, I'm going to set that to the side and then leave this in this position and do the same on the other side. Okay, to lift this unit, we're a little bit creative here. I'm trying to use homeowner pieces, so this is a floor jack. I've brought it in under the rear beater here. Notice I do have the clearance on this one. Other options that you could use would be perhaps a forklift, if you have a way of lifting from the top, like an actual lift in your shop. A front loader, if you're very careful. Again, I want to emphasize this is a heavy piece of machinery. Make sure that if you lift, you chuck blocks underneath or something, that way you're safe and the machine is steady. That being said, we're going to use a floor jack. I'm going to bring it to this position, making sure that I've got some strength under here, and then I'm going to slide this 1x4 inside so that the wood is touching the paint. That way I don't get any scratching, and it kind of levels out the load a little bit. Once that's in place, I'm just going to make sure my beater is free and clear. It is going to lift against here, but it's not too much weight that it's going to break anything. I'll come back to the back. and crank it up. All right, you want to be nice and careful when you're jacking it up. While it's up in the air, I'm going to make sure I don't get underneath of the machine at all, but I am going to grab my impact, take out this bracket right here, and then slip the wheel on and fit it. Again, this is going to be a 1/2-inch socket. You can come in, buzz off the brackets. Being careful, I'm going to set that aside. These screws you don't need for anything in particular. Either discard of them safely or just use them for another project. I'll switch my socket back out for the 3/4 and then grab a wheel out so we can install in the hub. With the wheel, I'm going to leave the valve stem on the outside. That way it's easier to access for filling with air. I'll slip it onto the hub, and then you can see I need a little bit more space, so I'm going to crank this up. Just 3 pumps. Rotate to the proper position. And then I'm going to start all of these by hand, which is important. If you're tightening these with an impact, make sure that you go pretty tight with the impact. I'm on setting 3 right here, and I'm going to go around and double check that they're all snug. If you do have a torque wrench, we would recommend 110 to 120 foot-pounds of torque on those bolts specifically. With this tire installed, we can come around, we can lower it down a little bit, and then lift and install the other side. You can see from this side that it was really hard to get enough height out of the hub that we could actually slip the wheel on. So what I did is I had to reposition the jack a little bit so that I can actually get this wheel onto the hub like so. With the tires installed, you can obviously take everything out from underneath. The floor jack was just something that we had on hand. You're welcome, again, to use anything that you find so long as it's safe. And of course, look where you're going. You could always put wood or some kind of cushion between the lifting point and the machine. That way you don't scratch your paint. From there, we're going to install the rear shroud and then the front hitch. On the inside of the machine, you'll find this package right here. This is the rear shroud. This plastic wrap, of course, you can rip off, and we're just going to throw it to the side. The shroud is going to mount into this position right here. However, we've got to take our bolts out first. So find a little workspace that you can use. These are 7/16 bolts, so I'm going to grab my impact and a wrench, run that out. With the bolts out of the way, you can take your shroud and line it up. I'm going to do this by myself, however this is easier with a friend. That's one lined up. And then I have the nut I'll leave there. With each of the bolts in, I haven't tightened those down yet, however I'm going to take this one off here to undo that right in the back. That way we have a couple of points to mount it to. I'm going to lower this a little bit so that I can slip my bolt in here and the nut back on, and that'll hold the position so I can go around. That's the difficult balancing part. Now I can go around and do all this quickly. The handle, you can see how it's going to line up. Very simple. 2 bolts on this side, 1 on this side. I'll bring my impact. With the handle in place, you should be able to engage and disengage easily. The upward position on the handle will drop the chain onto the sprocket. And then when you're done, you can lift. That way it is disengaged and the handle in the lower position. This handle is adjustable with wing nuts where you could stretch it further or back further depending on your setup. From here, we're gonna go down to the hitch. I'm gonna take the jack and go put some light pressure just against the frame and underneath. Then, before I get too far, I'll come to the front and attach this bolt. Make sure that you're nice and steady. Set the bolt to the side. And that'll allow me to lift. Now, the machine may shift a little bit, so I recommend, again, having braces, friends, whatever it is nearby that can help you to make sure that it's braced and safe. From there, though, I'm going to lift directly up. Into said position. Grab the hitch out. With the hitch ready, you can come in, undo this bracket, and then slide your hitch into position, whatever you desire. Now you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different holes that you could line up with. In this 220, I don't have specific plans for it, so I'm going to slide it in the whole way. One more option that you'd have is all the way in. This would be for transport or something like that, where you just want to tuck it away for the season. But I'm going to go into the last towing position. With the hitch in position, you can see that it's locked. From here, the 220 is operable. It's fully set up other than any additional options that you have one and would like to mount. The load chutes in this one came on the inside. If you had light material sides, it could have been in the spreader, or maybe it came set up or whatever it might be. Depending on what you've got, here are the load chutes that I'm going to be working with. I'm going to use this back tray as a little bit of a table, simply because this is coated, so I'm not going to be scratching anything. You can open your stretch wrap. You'll find the hardware necessary. These are all the same small 7/16 nuts, flange nuts, and then small Phillips head screws that you can use. So I'm going to go right there. These pieces, there's going to be 2 of each set, 2 of each piece. I'm going to grab 1 of each and set the other one to the side. These pieces I'm going to take up to the unit and mount on the side like so. There are plenty of holes already in the unit. You can see these holes are for light material sides up in the middle of the spreader. The ones at the end here are for the loading chutes. I'm going to go like so with the screw at the top and the flange nut on the bottom. 1, 2. Then I'm not going to tighten these down specifically so that I can fit everything into place. Then I'll go around and tighten it. So I'll switch to the other side. The actual chute itself will fit into position like so. The bent portion can go in the back. With everything in position, your 220 is ready for operation. We've got the loading chutes installed, the rear shroud, which again you can position in any of these notches. That would be up to whatever you're looking for in the spread pattern. Your engagement handle is installed, where you can go up and down, and then your hitch is also in position. From here, you can hitch right up to the 220 and pull it off of the crate, wheel it off by hand, or whatever's easiest for you. We encourage you to enjoy your 220, but be safe while you're putting it together and using it. Thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful.